Good evening and a warm welcome to tonight's webinar, the second in the series for the year 2022. First of all, let me take this chance to apologize on behalf of the organizing committee of this webinar for the late takeoff. We had a little technical hitch, which has since been sorted out, so we can now take off. We are going to take an opening prayer and then the rest will follow. We are praying, please. Father Lord, we commit tonight's program into your hands. We thank you, Father Lord, even for bringing us together tonight to learn and to gather new ideas for progress, for whatever is ahead of us. We pray for understanding. We pray for knowledge and utterance for the presenter, such that at the end, whatever he may share with us would become of benefit to our lives here and after. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. On call tonight, we have some notable personalities that we need to recognize before we move on. During the course of the webinar, others will be joining, and when they do so, we shall be acknowledging them as well. On call tonight, we have Mr. Theodore Osai, who is the Vice President of the CIMG. We also have Mr. Jordan Robertson, a former council member, Mrs. Hilda Piazza, who is a council member, and also Mr. Kojo Mata, who is also a council member. We are also having some friends from Nigeria who will be joining the webinar tonight. So as and when we see them join, we shall be recognizing them as well. Without much ado, I'd want to welcome Mr. Kofi Fume, who is the CEO of CIMG Consult, to give us the welcome address to usher us into the program. Mr. Kofi Fume, please take it up. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As Prosper said, this evening's program is as important to every practitioner of marketing as it is to anyone who wants to develop professionally. The concept of excellence in professional life sometimes is not clear to most of us. But I think what we will gain today from today's webinar is an idea of what excellence looks like as far as professional lives are concerned. I believe that if we note some of the salient things that Theodore will take us through, we should be able to transform our professional lives and make it what others will call excellence. So I entreat all of you to pay attention, take down notes. If at the end of it all there are issues you want clarified, please bring them up for clarification. If we are not able to clarify all issues, and the people with issues are many, we probably might put together a training program where you have the opportunity to delve into some of the concepts of this into more details. So relax, enjoy yourself, and let's learn. Over, Prosper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kofi Fume, for that wonderful welcome address. So tonight we know what's on the menu. The speaker for tonight is no stranger to us. Tonight happens to be the third time he is going to share insights with us. He has proven beyond doubt that he is a walking testimony of what he preaches. To wit, he always practices what he preaches. He is the managing consultant of the Family Office Africa, and I guess we all know a lot about him already. But tonight, he is going to take us to another dimension, fast and furious. I will not bore you with much talk, but I'd like us all here present to welcome our speaker for tonight's webinar, Mr. Theodore Albright, who will take us through his topic for tonight's webinar, Professional Excellence. Mr. Albright, your audience, sir.
Hello, good evening. I'm really delighted to be here with all of you. I'm just going to share my screen and then we're going to have some fun together today. So just hold on a minute. Thank you very much. All right, so question is, can you see my screen? Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Absolutely super. So today's topic is on professional excellence. And I'm hoping that we'll take a fair bit of stuff away for our own lives, for our teams, for our organization, and ultimately for the nation, Ghana, Nigeria, or wherever it is that you're calling in from. I think excellence is important for all of us. We'll look at a basic introduction, and then we'll go through know yourself, know your team. We'll look at some basic competencies and skills, understanding the context within which you and I operate. Really important. Please, let me say this right at the start. I rather enjoy the cut and thrust of the debate, the arguments, the contributions, the dialogue that we have during these sessions. So please don't be a stranger. Don't feel like you have to wait until the very end to ask questions. Please ask me questions as we go along. You can interrupt me. You can even heckle me. And if you don't agree with me, you can say so. That's not a problem at all. The idea is that we all learn from the body of knowledge that I'm going to present, and hopefully we'll all go away a lot wiser. So please do not leave your questions to the end. You can interrupt me, or you can post your questions, and the convener will dutifully raise them for me to address as we go through this session. I'm really delighted that you can make some time for us to tackle this topic, professional excellence. So straight off, I say that professional excellence means what? It means possessing the right attitude and aptitude supported by strong values. Excellence, knowledge, skill alone, however, are not enough for any of us to attain professional excellence. We need a bit more than just having the skill, aptitude, and attitude. And so part of this journey is to look at some of those dimensions. Another look at this is when actually you sit as a professional who offers excellence in either services or in product, then the expectation is that you sit at the top of the dominance hierarchy. You're a world-class expert on your subject matter. You're a leader in your field. You're a thought leader. You're a driving force. You're an innovator in your discipline. Now, that's quite a tall order. And the question is, how do we go from perhaps a novice to advanced beginner to competent to proficient to expert and perhaps even experienced world-class professional? And this may come as a surprise to you, but the starting point for anyone and for all of us to get to professional excellence is to know ourselves. Is to know who we are. And you might say, but Theodore, I already know who I am. You know, I'm 40 years old. I've been with myself for 40 years. So I'm 60 years old. I already know who I am. And that's great. But the question is, do you truly know who you are? And if you do the people around you know who you are? Do your team know who you are? And do you know your team? And so let's explore this know thyself type paradigm. As an individual, we are all plagued by biases, either conscious or unconscious. And those biases feature in how we see the world. Okay? And so if, for example, I'm born in Ghana, the likelihood and probability is that I will be a Christian. However, if I'm born in Saudi Arabia or I'm born in Iran, I would be a Muslim. And my culture, my environment will influence how I see the world, the lens through which I process information through the world, and how I interpret the world. And of course, the world is multicolored, kaleidoscope, the whole rainbow. And therefore, if I see the world in one dimension, let's say yellow, and you see the world in green, unless I know that I see the world in yellow, we have a problem. Okay, so an individual looking to be the master of his game must know himself. Not knowing who we are, whether I'm a green or a yellow, a blue or a purple or a white, will disable me in my journey to professional excellence. So my starting point is I must know who I am. And who I am is multifaceted. Okay? Who I am is multidimensional. My values make me. My culture makes me. My education makes me. My engagement, my environment, my endurance, all of those things make me. And those component parts will not necessarily be the same for the person next door. And so not only do I need to understand who I am, but I also need to understand how I take in and process information, and for that matter, how I give out information. So I need to be very clear about my cultural biases, my cognitive biases. And that then feeds into seeking absolute clarity on purpose, value creation, strategy, direction of travel, and we're supported by heuristics, rule of thumb, normally vision, values, mission, culture, plans, targets, and scorecards, all of which are impinged upon by our cultural biases by our environmental biases, by our philosophical, sociological, political biases. And all of these things need to be known by us as they influence how we interact with the world, and for that matter, how we receive, consume, process, and produce information. Really important. And so knowing yourself goes beyond, my name is Kweku, I come from Ghana. There is a need to process knowing self at multi-levels. I hope I'm clear on this picture that I'm seeking to paint. Okay, so I say here that every individual starts their journey with a series of lenses or biases. Each of these biases at their core also relate or interrelate with the type of personality we are. And there's a direct correlation with how we consume knowledge. Let's just have a thought experiment here. For a quarter of us, we are action-oriented. And so even as you're processing and listening to me, you're thinking, how do I take this and use it from an action perspective? But there are some of us here who are data-driven, and therefore will be listening to me and thinking, where is he getting his data from? Another set will be listening to me and thinking, so how does this relate to human beings? And all of those are lenses of types of personalities. So not only are we influenced by the normal biases, but we have a double whammy. We are doubly blessed to be influenced by our personality types. All right. And so by knowing yourself, you start to understand A, what your biases are, your influences are, the lens through how you see the world. B, you get to know what sort of personality you are. And that then influences how you consume knowledge, how you produce knowledge, and how you interact with other people, your team, and beyond. You should know yourself. And that knowing yourself comes with a lot of introspection and a lot of reflection. Really important. If you're going to be top of your game and sit at the top of the dominance hierarchy and be subject matter expert, then you need to understand who you are and how you process information and how you produce information and how you interact as a result of your biases and your personality type, how you interact with human beings. And so here, we've got a very basic personality type diagram: blue, red, yellow, and green. And typically, red tends to be a very domineering type character, okay? Driven to action, direct action, very direct, speaks wants quick reaction, wants quick action, can't hang around. Blue, on the other hand, is a little bit slower because they're analytical and seek to process data. They're looking for data, okay? And they tend to be cautious and seek data in order to make decisions. Green tends to be more reflective and tends to relate to how human beings will feel in a given situation. And yellow tends to be the one who's the life of the party, will dance on the table, very inspirational, charismatic, and is quick to react. Now, if you have these four personalities sitting in a room having a conversation, and you don't understand who you are in the first place and who they are in the second place, you're going to have conflict. And you're never going to congeal and cohere as a team. You will be asking for action. One will be asking for inspiration. One will be asking for reflection. And another will be asking for data. And so not only do you need to know yourself, where you sit in these personality types, but you also need to understand how it influences you in order to take action. So an excellent professional, you consume information from the different colors, but you must also be self-aware when you are consuming and then producing your expectation. As a generalized rule of thumb or heuristic, again, you need to ask, am I delivering from a position of I know or I don't know? Or am I delivering from a position of I am fearless or anxious and confident? Okay? And then this is another heuristic that we use to assess, am I operating from a position of I know and I'm confident? I know and I'm not confident. I don't know and I'm confident. I don't know and I'm not confident. Okay? So where do you fall? Again, this is all about knowing who you are, even before you start the journey. Okay? And so when you look at this diagram, often I'm going to start from the extreme right, top right. The top right says, I am fearless and I'm all-knowing. Okay? For such an individual to be world-class, you need to set up a system that challenges people to challenge you. Otherwise, you become myopic and you fall off the scale. When you go down to the bottom right, I am all-knowing, but I am fearful. You're anxious. Here, as a person, even though you know you're stymied in making decisions, you need validation, external validation. On the bottom left, you don't know and you're fearful. So you're paralyzed. Okay? Here you need to seek data, external data, and learn before you grow. But the most dangerous aspect of this diagram is the top left corner, where you are fearless and you're ignorant. You're full of hubris, pride, and arrogance. And here, your teammates need to prepare to put the brakes on you. And so you need to know where you fall on this diagram. Am I fearless and all-knowing? Am I fearless and ignorant? Am I fearful and ignorant? Or am I fearful and all-knowing? Again, this is how you assess yourself with yourself going on a journey to professional excellence. Okay? And as a champion of champions, the leader must model the talk, and the talk is of excellence. I'm just going to stop there for a moment Please, do you have any questions, comments about knowing yourself before you get to that place of professional excellence? Anybody? Okay, so if there's nobody, then I'll move on. The point here is that professional excellence is not just at the individual level. It's no good being the sole professional who is excellent in your organization, in your country, or in your team. It must, of necessity, be shared. You must spread the love. Okay? And so in moving from individual professional excellence to a position where the team begins to cohere around professional excellence, you need to know your team. And in a sense, you need to do the same introspection that you have done at the individual level at the team level. The very same. And so, while you seek to understand your own behavior, you must also seek to understand the behavior of the members of your team. Okay? And so, understanding other people's behavior, method of communication allows you to interact better. Remember, we are on a journey to professional excellence. Okay? And here's another personality type framework, and it's called Ocean, and it's derived from Carl Gustav Jung. Some of us call him Young or Jung, J-U-N-G. Okay? And he talks about the 5 personality traits being openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And each has a plus and a minus. So not only have we looked at the red, yellow, green, and blue, but here we are looking at the 5 major personality traits. This is normally what they use for Myers-Briggs personality tests. And we'll look at each one of them in turn. So typically, if you're high in conscientiousness, you're well organized, detailed oriented, and thoughtful. If you're low, then you're not good at completing tasks, meeting goals. You have difficulty controlling impulses and difficulty in working in teams. Some people are highly agreeable. That's a bit like the green that we just saw. They are empathetic, sympathetic, easy to trust. They work well with others. On the other side, they just don't give a damn and can be highly stubborn and can be demanding. Neurotic, they're anxious, when they're high in neuroticism, they're angst-driven, hostile tendencies, overly stressed. And when they're low, they are calm, collected, and resilient. In terms of openness, they're very creative, will try everything. When they are low, they dislike change and resist new ideas. In terms of extroversion, they thrive on social interaction, can be attention seekers. They're the classic ones who wear red socks When they are low, they are good listeners, excel at teamwork, but get exhausted with too much socialization. So not only do you need to know yourself from a bias perspective, from a personality perspective, but you also need to know that of your team if you're going to journey to professional excellence. Okay, and a team is best balanced when members play the role of results orientation and relationship focus, process focus, innovative takers, pragmatic and practical. Diversity in a team is always critical. And increasingly, we're seeing a drive towards diversity and inclusion. That is simply because the more diverse your team, the more creative they're going to be. And the more creative they are, the better the ability to resolve problems when they come up. What you don't want is groupthink. All the biases congealing together around a particular big idea and not seeing the downside. Okay, so that flexibility of thought is critical on your journey to professional excellence. Otherwise, if to quote Margaret Thatcher, a certain politician has a hammer and everything looks like a nail to him. Okay, it means that you have just one solution to every problem in the world, and that simply won't do. You have one key to all the doors in the world. That simply won't do. Diversity allows you to have innovation in solution problem solving. Any questions here? There are often leadership types. And the two classic ones are the directive and the empowering. And let me say this, that if you're going to be directive, when you take it to the extreme, you start to micromanage. And you do not allow your team to breathe. And typically, you need to be able to identify when to be directive and when to empower. And typically, directive power leadership style is for short-term projects when you have a new team who are not aware of what they're doing. But the favorite choice is to empower, which gives your team room, A, for you to delegate and not micromanage, but B, for your team to grow. You can't be all-knowing and all-conquering. You need to be able to delegate for your team to grow. And so my favorite mode is empowering your team, giving them the tools and enabling them to go and deliver. And so professionals, we create meaning through empowered leadership, training, celebration of diversity of culture and personality, all underpinned by emotional intelligence. Let me take this apart. Most of us spend about a third of our lives at work. And it's important that if I am coming to work, that the work that I do is meaningful. And it will only become meaningful to me if you empower me, you train me, you celebrate my difference of culture and personality, and you are emotionally intelligent. Some of us are emotionally tone deaf. And so what we do is we cause pain rather than give pleasure in the workplace. And you can never have a professional excellence where there's no psychological safety, i.e., where you create emotional instability and pain, i.e., you drive people by fear. I know Machiavelli says it is better to be feared than to be loved. But there's sufficient evidence to show that in the long term, it is better to be loved than to be feared. And if you think I'm lying, how come Jesus has 2.7 billion followers? They're not doing it out of fear, they're doing it out of love. And so there is something to be said in terms of professional excellence, that you create meaning, you empower, you celebrate diversity, and you are sensitive to the emotional well-being, psychological safety of the environment. And for those type of leaders who create professional excellence and go on to create professionally excellent teams, they engage the teams and individuals. They show concern about the personal, the team, and the organizational growth, verging on the servant leadership. Servant leadership here is a style of leadership where, frankly, the needs and the concerns of the workers are almost more important than the desired outcomes of the organization. And what that does is create incredible bonding and trust. And where people work in an environment with trust, they give 100% and more in output. Okay? There should be a pathological drive for team psychological safety. Emotional intelligence is critical if you're going to create professional excellence. In fact, your emotional intelligence is critical to creating emotional intelligence. Having said that, there are a few leaders who have not exhibited emotional intelligence, and they've been able to create great companies. But those, I hasten to add, who have worked with such leaders have always walked away emotionally scarred. And so we, you and I, need to know ourselves when we start to engage others in terms of teams. And there are instances where people create havoc, emotional havoc, and leave team members emotionally wrecked. And then they wonder why they have a high attrition rate in their organization. Clearly, I'm telling you, if your attrition rate is on the high side, beyond average, you're losing your talent and you cannot drive towards professional excellence. Because now we are working in a knowledge environment, a knowledge industry, knowledge age, and your sustainable competitive advantage resides in your staff, not in your facilities or in your technology, but in the human beings with whom you interact on a daily basis. And it's critical that if we're going to drive towards professional excellence, where we sit at the top of the dominance hierarchy, where we become subject matter experts, and by extension, take our teams along with us, then we need to be emotionally intelligent. So beyond knowing your biases and knowing your personality type and knowing that you need to be emotionally intelligent, there are basic hygiene factors that we all need in our journey to deliver excellence. And it's here. Speed of delivery, accuracy is important, clarity is important, clear communication important, the use and leverage of technology important, having the ability to execute, formulate teams, contextualize your environment, have clearly defined decision-making processes, sharing knowledge, great interpersonal skills, financial acuity, drive and resilience. All of these are business as usual. Business as usual in our journey towards delivering professional excellence. Without these, I'm afraid we will be stymied, we will be prevented from becoming world-class, sitting at the top of the dominance hierarchy. Let's just reflect for a moment. When I speak to you about Germany and German engineering, what comes to mind? Can anybody tell me?
Quality. Excellence.
I'm sorry?
Excellence.
Excellence. Excellence. Excellence.
Yeah.
You know, the Germans have acquired a reputation for excellence in engineering delivery. When we talk about food, sorry, you're going to say something? When we talk about food and fashion, and you mention Italy or France, you know that they make great wines, great cheeses, lovely couture clothes, both in Italy and in France. And that comes from excellence at the very micro level, granular level. In Germany, they have an apprentice system which you go through years and years, and there is a culture of not accepting mediocrity. And that is why we all love German cars. You know, in our Ghanaian parlance, we say you sleep in a Benz. You don't sit in a Benz. You sit in a car, but you sleep in a Benz. Na oda Benz. When I saw him, he was sleeping in a Benz. Why? Because they've acquired a reputation for delivering excellent engineering. And if you want a wonderful car that is put together, that doesn't fall apart, you get yourself a Porsche. And my understanding is that about 70% of all the Porsches that have ever been made are still on the road. Can you imagine that? About 70% of all the Porsches that have ever been made are still on the road. Okay? And then you have some engineering firms that will give you a lifetime guarantee. Can you imagine that? There is a manufacturer in the United Kingdom called Riga, R-E-G-A, Riga, R-E-G-A. They make turntables for playing records, and they guarantee their turntables for life. For life. Go buy something in Ghana, and you're lucky if you get 1 week's guarantee. For life. And my question to you, my listener, my question to you, my listener, thank you. My question to you, my listener, is how do you make sure that you not inoculate your skills and knowledge against mediocrity and obsolescence? Mediocrity and obsolescence. Because excellence is not a one-day affair. And if you do not inoculate yourself against obsolescence, becoming obsolete, then you will soon be out of the field. And so in our journey to excellence, we, knowing ourselves and our biases and our personality types, then need to optimize our capabilities so that we can maximize our utility. I repeat, we need to optimize our capabilities so that we can maximize our utility. My issue here is obsolescence. Obsolescence. You know, and apparently the second law of thermodynamics says that everything atrophies. I.e., if you leave a tomato, it will degenerate, break down into its irreducible core components. And so there is a constant.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Albright. My hand is up.
Please,
Mr. Albright,
what
my
is
hand
your
is up,
question?
please.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. My question is, good evening, please.
Yeah.
My question is, haven't introduced all the qualities that a professional must have?
Yeah.
You just gave an analogy of the quality of maybe an industry or how it drives the industry, like the Mercedes you mentioned.
Yes.
Now, I think the culture of the organization plays a very active role. I mean, their philosophy, what they believe in, plays a very active role here.
Yes.
So you might have a professional who is of high, like he has all the qualities mentioned. But if the organization's culture is not that solid enough, it's either you are being changed or you change the environment. I don't know how you change the culture changes you. So, and one is meant to conform to the culture of an organization. So I think if the philosophy of the organization, as if it is that solid, maybe if that person comes with that professional qualities, then of course he can drive through perfectly. But if the culture is different, it makes it a bit difficult. Either the person being changed or he changed the culture. That is where I find it difficult to grab.
Okay. Thank you, Emmanuel, Mr. Wilson. Let me say this. I totally and wholeheartedly agree with you. Okay? That where the culture is not one that celebrates excellence, but rather celebrates mediocrity, okay? You have a choice. You can either change the culture or be changed by the culture. And of course, this is a journey to professional excellence at the individual level, at the team level, and at the organizational level, and at the country level. And it starts with the individuals. It starts with the individuals. So I do not disagree with you. Indeed, culture, it is said, is an antidote to chaos. But some cultures do not serve us well. If we have a culture that does not believe in excellence, and therefore we do work shoddy or anyhow or half-heartedly, then we will not succeed in our drive to professional excellence. And truth is that when we go back to Germany, when we go back to Japan, and you look, it starts at the granular level, you and I, and then goes to the team, and then goes to the organization, then goes to the community, then goes to the country. And there's no doubt about it. Where you have a country, nation, company, or community whose values are not aligned with excellence, then it'll be very difficult to bang your head against the wall. But the point of this discussion is that how do we begin, if we haven't already begun, to go on that journey to professional excellence? What are the disaggregated constituent parts that allow us to drive for professional excellence? And it starts with you, and it starts with me. And that is why I started at the granular level with the individual. Okay? Any other comments or questions before I go on? And please,
Yeah,
do not. Sorry.
yeah, Mr. Albright, I have a question, but I might have to take you back a bit.
No problem at all. Go ahead.
Yes, you spoke about the 5 personality traits,
Yes.
and then directive and empower leadership style.
Yes.
What I want to find out is that if you are leading a team with the 5 personality traits, which has its own advantages, each of the traits has its own advantages and disadvantages. For each of the traits, how do you apply the directive and empowerment so that the disadvantages of each trait can be converted to strength?
Fantastic. Fantastic question. Absolutely fantastic question. And thank you very much for that question. The reason why you need to understand the personality types is the mode by which, 1, you communicate. 2, the mode by which you assign tasks. And 3, the analysis you address to the nature of the task. So if the task is to build a hotel and then equip the hotel and run the hotel, your conscientious will drive the build, your open will explore the possibilities of how it is advertised, your extrovert or extroversion will deal with the customers, your neurotic will oversee and make sure there is completion, and your agreeable will look at the human factor for emotional intelligence. That is I've just given you a composite, okay, a macrocosm. But going beyond that, you need to ask yourself, what sort of task am I looking at? And in fact, it is in the presentation. Some tasks ask for coordination. Some tasks ask for quality. Some tasks will ask for accuracy. And so where you're dealing with quality, coordination, or accuracy, immediately it becomes obvious to whom the task should go. 1, should it be an individual? 2, should it be a team? If it's a team, who should lead the team? If I'm looking for accuracy, my neurotic and my conscientious will do very well. If I'm looking for coordination, my agreeable and my extroversion will do very well. Let me use another analogy. Let's say that you are running a church, an evangelical church, a happy, clappy church. All right. You want your extrovert to be at the door, or you want your agreeable to be at the door. Okay?
Okay.
But with your pastor, you might want somebody who is detailed oriented or agreeable to deliver the message. Please, are you understanding me? So, yes, you look at the personality traits, the biases people have, you look at the composition of the team, you look at the task at hand, and then you decide whether I'm going to be directive, I'm going to empower. Typically, directive is for short-term projects where the composition of the team is neophytes, people who are new to the game. So you say, you do this, you do that, you do that. But for long-term gain, empowering is what you need. You engage, you empower, and that allows them to go and deliver. Otherwise, you do everything yourself. If I take you to Exodus, you will see Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, supposedly saying to Moses, what you are doing is not good. You cannot do all of this by yourself. If I were you, I will appoint heads of 10,000, heads of thousands, heads of hundreds, so that only the important stuff comes to you. Otherwise, you wear yourself out. Classic delegation. Classic delegation. But what is also interesting is that even before that, you hear Moses appointing a gentleman, two gentlemen, to fashion the Ark of the Covenant. Why? Because they have creative skills. They have creative skills. So in delegating, you need to understand, yes, the biases, yes, the personality type, yes, the nature of the task, yes, the desired outcomes, and ultimately the style, whether I do directive or I do empower. But please, let's also be clear that situationally, if you're on the battlefield, it is you issue the order, then they do. You haven't got time to start mollycoddling different people. And so the directive style is normally for short-term projects. But if you want long-term, professional, excellent benefits, then you need to empower your team.
Excellent submission.
Thank you. You're very kind. Let me go on to say, sorry, you want to say something?
No, I said this professional excellence.
Thank you. You're very kind. Let me go on to say that, you see, it doesn't matter if you improve incrementally. Many years ago, a certain bank had an advert, a zero can change your life. And it's true. When you put the zero at the end of the number, it's very plenty. Okay? 1% increment can improve your life. 1% increment, efficiency can improve your life. So do not neglect or reject the beginning of small things. Okay? Incremental 1%. If you do 1% over a month, that is 12.2 or 3% compounded over a year. Now, Masa, if we are talking hundreds of millions or billions, 12% is a large sum indeed. So do not neglect, reject micro improvements, course corrections. Okay, they can make a big difference in giving you, the individual, or your team, or your company, or your country, sustainable competitive advantage. And I'm saying this because in the drive for professional excellence, our habits and daily rituals, what we do with the minutes, the seconds, the hours, the days, makes the difference that makes the difference. So if you spend 30 minutes a day improving yourself by reading a book, I knew it will come there. I had to put it in somewhere. By reading or reflecting or journaling, you will be on your mission to professional excellence. Let me be clear. When you, I mean, this is anecdotal, and then I'll give you scientific data. Typically, when I ask people, what book are you reading? 10 out of 9 of them, yes, you heard me right. 10 out of 9 of them will not be reading anything. How can you drive yourself to professional excellence when you're still relying on the GCE O-level 1971 knowledge? And we are doing Facebook, and we are doing AI, and we are doing augmented technology, and you're still using slide rule. Huh? You are still using slide rule. Never in the history of mankind, over the 30 billion years or so that the earth has existed, has there been democratization of knowledge and information like today? Today is the 26th of March 2022. And never in the history of mankind have people not read at all. The only books people are reading to gain information which will give them knowledge to drive them towards world-class and professional excellence is Facebook. My friends, brothers and sisters, fellow countrymen, we cannot, in our drive for professional excellence, not consume quality information. Indeed, the good book says, my people are dying
for lack of knowledge.
Because they lack knowledge. We will die if we do not strive A for knowledge and B for excellence. And it's all in a book. And it is all in a book. Every solution to every problem on this planet, in the whole universe, is in a book. Economy is in a book. Economy is in a book. Hunger is in a book. Wealth is in a book. Health is in a book. Wisdom is in a book. Security is in a book. Prosperity is in a book. Welfare is in a book. Why are we not consuming?
Good evening, Theodore. Good evening, Theodore.
Good evening.
Good evening, Theodore. Excellent presentation. I'm really loving it, and I'm loving your fire also this evening.
Thank you. Please.
So you asked the question much earlier at the beginning, and I thought I should say something to that.
Yeah.
I'm very delighted you started this discussion on professional excellence with a question about the self. Self. And I totally agree with that idea, because in my personal conviction is that everything starts and ends with the self. And so the individual who chooses to become the person that reaches professional excellence, i.e., being able to assess that dominant hierarchy that you've referred to, should be somebody who knew themselves, because it is that knowledge of yourself that will bring meaning. And various bodies of knowledge, including science and psychology, have said that humans are creatures of meaning and purpose. And so if the activity or the action has some peculiar meaning to you, you move towards that meaning. So there's this intrinsic motivation because of the meaning you assign to a particular project or a particular movement or a particular journey. One of my favorite sayings is from Friedrich Nietzsche. He says that if you know your why, you can endure anyhow. And so knowing yourself is what starts or gives you what it takes to have meaning in life, in what you do. And you see, because you have meaning and you're moving towards a direction, you attract people towards that meaning, that light that you see, or that vision that you carry. And so knowing yourself, and then I'm happy you moved on to talk about the fact that you need to know the people who come around you also. Their personality types, perhaps their motivations, their unique skill set and traits, so that in your carrying of the vision, the knowledge of yourself and the knowledge of the people that are around you, you can design and tailor and strategize in which the proper culture will come to carry the vision to the expected end. And so I'm just very delighted by the way you've woven this body of knowledge. And I totally agree with your idea of how we achieve professional excellence through the self, through the knowledge of others, to the expected end by providing leadership as professional excellence. Thank you. Thank you so much, Theodore. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let me just add to that. How can a
Theodore, sorry, before you go on, Theodore, I think some people are unmuted and we are getting feed from here. So those who are unmuted, if you can kindly mute, since this program is being recorded as well. Thank you very much.
Okay. So my question to you, my listener, and to myself is, how can a sub-optimized mind, brain, produce optimized results? Please tell me. Tell me. Sub-optimized thinking can never produce optimized outcomes. What is professional excellence if not optimized outcomes? How can suboptimal thinking produce optimized results? You have a winning chance if your thinking, your brain, your mind, your skill set is optimized. And you can only optimize your thinking, your skills, your mindset if you are consuming quality information and quality data. And by that, I mean you are reading and consuming quality information. And I challenge everybody on this call today. You don't have to answer, but look in your own heart and ask yourself, today is the 26th day of May, 2022. How many books, quality books, have I read? And if you haven't read, then you know that you are not on your journey to high performance. You're not on your journey to professional excellence. How much time do I dedicate to growing my skill, honing my skill, mastery? And if we don't have mastery at the granular level, individual level, we will not have mastery at the team level. We will not have mastery at the company level. We will not have mastery at the community level. We will not have mastery at the country level. And so we owe a duty and obligation to optimize who we are in how we think. Optimized thinking will give you a chance at optimized outcomes, suboptimal skills, suboptimal systems, suboptimal tools will never, unless you like magic or the miraculous, give you the optimization to be world class, to sit at the top of the dominance hierarchy. Have you noticed how the footballers, the sports entertainers, how much time they spend in order to become world class? There's a guy called Erickson who wrote a thesis called the 10,000 hour rule, which was later adopted by Malcolm Gladwell in his book called Outliers. But the essence of becoming world class was that you needed particularized practice over a period of 10,000 hours, the equivalent of 3 to 5 years, in order to become world class. Professional excellence. Professional excellence. All of this needs to take place within a context. That context is the culture, the environment, the mindset within which we operate. That is important. And so I go back to Mr. Emmanuel Wilson's question. If the culture of the industry or environment is negative, then what will I do? How can I? And I say, be the change you want to see. And don't tell me one person can't make a difference. Often one person can make a difference. And we have so many instances of one person starting a revolution, which then catches fire. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Muhammad, peace be unto his name, Jesus the Christ, Socrates. But I'm just giving you a few. And then with the rallying cry ringing in our ears, yes, we can, Barack. Yes. Or Nelson Mandela, Amandla. It is possible. It is possible. So very quickly, we're going to come to the end, but I want to say that in this day and age, We manage teams that are digital in nature. They are disparate, dispersed, and diverse. They are digital in nature, disparate, diverse, and dispersed. And such teams, if we are to bring excellence, we need to modulate and modulate influence and power. We've already talked about being directive and being empowering. Okay? For world-class professional excellence, there must be absolute clarity on the values of the organization, on the vision of the organization or the individual. The culture must be clear. What actions we want to take must be clear. The mission and the model must be absolutely clear. The type of power, plans, psychological safety, personality types must be very clear. Our scorecard, what gets measured gets done. What does not get measured does not get done. Clarity of goals, clarity of purpose, clarity of interpersonal skills, clarity of processes, undergirded by motivation, emotional intelligence. Critical. The nature of the task. Is it coordination? Is it quality? Is it accuracy? Is it production? Frankly, for us to journey towards professional excellence, one, we need to know ourselves and the outcomes we desire. We need to understand implicitly the journey we want to undertake, our environment, our team, the potential obstacles, and prepare for these. Please, let me leave this ringing in your ears. Let me be not misconstrued. Do not understand me. I am saying this. Suboptimal thinking, suboptimal action, suboptimal skills, suboptimal tools can never produce optimized outcomes, professional excellence. It means we need to start to optimize ourselves first by engaging me and understanding me and knowing who I am in my drive to be excellent in what I do as a professional. I'm very grateful that we've spent this time together. I'm going to open the floor and the moderator is going to direct the questions, comments, brickbats, arguments. It's all good. I'm really grateful that you've spent this time with me. I hope we can all journey to our optimized selves and thereby provide professional, whatever profession we are in, be it a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, a pilot, a civil servant, a banker, whatever you do, it is possible to bring professional excellence to bear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Theodore Albright. As usual, you've wowed us with another wonderful presentation. And I have come to understand that excellence is a way of life that requires focus, passion, verve, and emotional intelligence. Attaining excellence can be challenging, but when you have a resolution to thrive, you can always attain it. We've all heard what Benz once said as their cliche. For a car to attain excellence, it has to look like a Benz. The floor is now going to be opened, and we are going to take questions for the for the presenter to try to answer for us. But please, let's go straight to the question. We'll be taking 3 at a stretch, and then he will answer them. So I can see Mr. Samuel Tinkran's hand up. So Mr. Tinkran, please take over.
Thank you. You've done great. Mine is very, very simple. My question is very simple. It's on groupthink, which is one thing that destroys everything that organization, plans to do. You may be excellent, or you must have invested in your own excellence, but invariably you find yourself in a team, in an organization whose culture, as you mentioned, rightly mentioned, diversity is great. But you realize that this organization has a culture of not being open to foreign ideas. And all that is stand for, we have been observing ourselves. And it's so distressing, its effect in politics, in all sorts of areas of governance. And what comes to mind straight away is a challenger debacle. How do we insulate ourselves against groupthink? Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tinkran. So once your question is asked, please, you can drop your hand so that we are not misled to call you again. So, Mr. Theodore, I think there's Chris. Chris, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So my question is, in the pursuit of professional excellence in your company or organization, if you happen to have negativity in your leadership, how do you address it? Do you try and change people, or do you effectively terminate people? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We also have Stephen. So, Stephen, you also shoot, and then our presenter can answer the 3 questions. So, Stephen, take it up.
Okay, hello. Hello, good evening. Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
We can hear you, Stephen. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I'm really inspired from what you just said. And of course, it cuts deep into every strata in every walks of life. So the question I'd like to ask is simple. Number 1, what happens, or how do one tend to manage a team, individuals in a team that tends to feel let alone or left out in either decision making or trying to work together? And secondly, talking about books, from your own wealth of wisdom, what can you prescribe, or how can you prescribe kinds of books that one could always read. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So the presenter will answer these 3 questions and then we'll take another set. So Mr. Theodore, please take it up,
Okay.
sir.
So how do you insulate yourself against groupthink? And frankly, I've just gone back to the metrics here, and typically, groupthink is in the fearless but ignorant. Okay, i.e., we don't know that we don't know. That is number one. But one of the antidotes to groupthink is the allowance of the awareness of the biases, inherent biases that we have. Because groupthink is simply a group of people with similar characteristics or biases driving in a particular direction. That is basically it. So diversity is an antidote. To groupthink. That is solution number one. Solution number two is power. The sources of power. Okay? If the sources of the power reside in the group and you are an outsider of the group, then it's going to be very difficult to influence unless you go along the line of almost kowtow in Kotoi, boot licking. Okay? You can push with expert power, but where there is a political agenda, then you almost have to give up and go home. And I will give you a classic case. Saddam Hussein, we were told, has weapons of mass destruction and can activate his weapons within 30 minutes. This is on the record. Tony Blair came and said it in Parliament. The then expert on Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, a Professor Kelly, then leaked information to the Guardian newspaper in the United Kingdom to say that is not true. That thing that Tony Blair has said in Parliament is not true. So Tony Blair said it, George Bush said it, and they prepared to go to war against Saddam Hussein. As a result, Robin Cook, who was one of the ministers in Tony Blair's government, resigned because he did not think that there was sufficient justification to go to war. 1 million people marched in London. Millions of people marched around the world and said, not in our name. And yet they went to war. And later we found there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But the worst part of it is that the expert in Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, who leaked information to the Guardian newspaper that Saddam Hussein didn't have the weapons of mass destruction, and therefore there was no need to go to war, was found in a forest with his wrist slit, and he bled to death in a forest. And you make of it what you will as to how he found himself in a forest alone with his wrist slit, with an artery chopped, and he bled to death. And to this day, we don't know how Professor Kelly or Dr. Kelly died. This is public knowledge. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. So I am saying that that is the extent to which groupthink can drive people in a particular direction. And in fact, Colin Powell actually said that was one of his not finest hours. And you will remember that Kofi Annan shuttled backwards and forwards, and Brutus Gali also went backwards and forwards, trying to prevent the Axis going to war, and they failed, and they went to war, and they didn't find anything. So groupthink is dangerous. The antidote to groupthink is diversity of thought. If not, then it is power, the exhibition of power or influence. But if you fail, then Charlie, you fail. So that is the answer to question number 1. How do you insulate against groupthink? Antidote is diversity of thought, diversity of culture, diversity of experience, diversity of skill, and also diversity of power systems and influence. That is number 1. Number 2, how do you address negativity, especially when you have a team? Look, the fastest way to cohering a team is by creating psychological safety, which in other words means trust. And if you are a leader, the fastest way to creating trust is authenticity and vulnerability. Showing that you don't know it all, showing that you too are flawed, and exposing some of your weakness to your team. And showing what I call a pathological drive for psychological safety, i.e. their concern. It is said of Alexander the Great that he shared the woes, the highs and the lows with his team. So at age 21, he took over the kingdom of Macedonia after his father, Philip of Macedon, died. And within 12 years, he had become the conqueror of the world. He took a rebel team and created an ace, high-performing, highly professional team, simply by sharing their woes and sharing their lows. So trust, authenticity, being almost driven, pathologically driven to showing concern, and servant leadership, that helps in cementing and bonding a team. Next, the next one is books. As for books, there are plenty, and I would say that everybody listening to my voice should be reading up on theology. So if you're Muslim, you read the Quran. If you're Christian, you read your Bible, and you do so regularly, and you find a version that is accessible. So if you're reading the Bible, I wouldn't encourage you to read King James Version, not even New King James Version. Your starting point should be Good News, because you want to read for understanding, Message Bible, New Living Translation, or some other accessible Bible, but not King James, because it is too obscure. Beyond that, you should be reading up on philosophy. Beyond that, you should be reading up on economics, politics. You should be reading up on quality biographies and literature. Okay. Presently, if I'm to recommend, say, 3 books, I would say everybody should have a copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Meditations is free on the internet. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Everybody should be reading the 12 rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Everybody should be reading Wisdom of the Ages by Wayne Dyer. Wisdom of the Ages by Wayne Dyer. Everybody should be reading How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. And the truth is that the number of books are countless. What I will do is I'll get a list of top 20 and share it with CIMG for them to send that list to all of you. Thank you. In terms of leadership, I'll just say that where you have problems with leadership, remember that there is professional power and personal power. And with the professional power, you have cohesiveness, reward, and legitimate power. But I would encourage everyone as a leader to drive with personal power, which is charisma or referent power and expert power. People don't like the exploitation of legitimate power. You use your post to bully me. They would rather you speak to them from a human perspective. And this is about emotional intelligence once again. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Albright. Stephen, are you still with your hand up? I think you just spoke.
Yes, I'm true. Thank you very much.
Okay, so if you can drop your hand, please, so that we are not. So we are going to take the next set of questions. Hey, all right, it's 8 o'clock. We promised closing at 8, but I believe more questions are coming. So we'll take the next set of questions, but we would ask that subsequently any question be put in the chat box, and then Theodore will go there, read, and then get back to us accordingly. So we'll take the next set of questions, and when they are dealt with, we would or should be bringing the session to a close. So Emmanuel, please take it up.
All right. Thank you very much. Good evening once again, Dr. Theodore Albright. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll go back to where the type of leadership in terms of the green, the blue, the red, and the yellow.
Yeah.
A company or an organization might have a clear-cut vision where they want to drive up to. Now, here's the case that all this one is possible. One may have 2 or 3 of the qualities blended together. Being blue, but have a little of yellow, or have a little of red, or have a little of green. But here's the case that in a group where you have clear direction, then you find someone from yellow leading the blue, or leading the red, or leading the green. Could you foresee any challenge in accepting the directives from that yellow?
I love the question, because that has been the basis of this whole discussion. You as a leader need to know yourself. Am I a red? Am I a yellow? Am I a green? Am I a blue? Who is in my team? Do I have all reds, all yellows? Look, there is one organization I worked with. When you go into that organization, they've got a chart of the people who sit in the red, the yellow, the green, and the blue. So immediately when you are interacting with the red, you know what they want. They are directive, they are direct, they are straight, they want action now. When you're dealing with the yellow, they want excitement now. When you're dealing with the blue, they want information now. When you're dealing with the green, they want empathy now. So that is why this whole session started with, who are you? Who are you? You need to know who you are. And then as leader, it doesn't matter which quadrant you sit in, know whom you're dealing with and address your communication style, the task orientation, and your influence through that lens. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Christiana, please shoot now.
Good evening, everyone.
Christiana, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Oh, thank you very much. Very presentation. Very enlightening. Please, I want to ask if the presentation will be shared with participants, or how do we have access to the presentation? Is it going to be shared? Thank you.
The presentation will be, in fact, I've already shared it with CIMG, and they will forward it on to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Any other questions?
Hello,
Yes, my
Mr.
hand is
Medusa.
up, please.
Okay.
Sorry, somebody was speaking, but they've gone off.
No, I'm still on. My hand is still up.
Oh, then please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much for your presentation. I was in and out along the line, but I want to find out, in the leader and in the team being led, does gender play any role in it? Does it color it in any way? That is my question.
And it's a brilliant question. You know, it is not for nothing that I spoke of diversity. You know, Christine Lagarde, at that time, she was the CEO, I think, of the IMF, World Bank. She walked into a room and said, guys, if there had been women more women in this room, we wouldn't have had the 2008 crisis. Diversity of gender, of thought, of culture, of belief, of bias is critical. Critical. Okay? To groupthink. The antidote to groupthink, the antidote to disaster. Critical. It brings about the necessary checks and balances. Okay, so you know, I pity those jurisdictions where half of their talents are sitting at home. It is a waste, total waste. And there is sufficient empirical evidence to say that when there is a rich mix, gender, bias, cognitive, culture, race, etc., etc., what that breeds is a world-class team, because you're multi-dimensional. You are able to be innovative, and you pivot faster, even though typically you would argue longer and more, but you're more secure in the outcomes that you derive. So yes, gender is critical to the diversity conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much too.
So, Amma, we'll take the last question from you, and then we'll be winding up. So, Amma, please go ahead.
Right, thank you very much. I shared my question in the chat box actually. And the question is, how is transforming business or organization or a country real while maintaining strong performance and growth in the midst of cultural upheavals within leadership?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? I didn't hear it.
How is transforming business or organization or a country real while maintaining strong performance and growth in the midst of cultural upheavals within leadership?
And I'll say this. I'll start off with, your reality is your reality. And let me just say this, you can have two people in the room. One is wearing yellow glasses, the other is wearing blue glasses. And immediately the argument will be that the room is yellow and the room is blue. And in fact, I perform this exercise normally during my leadership builds, where I get people to stand on a chair and I get people to lie on a carpet. And the perspectives are different and they are not wrong. The point is, what is the desired outcome? What are the desired outcomes? Okay? And what will give us the greatest good for the greatest number for the greatest longest time? What is for the greatest good, the greatest number for the greatest and longest time? That is the North Star to which we drive. And yes, we acknowledge, you will acknowledge the upheaval. But what is the better or the less worse? The less worse is to move. The more worse is to stay where you are in the upheaval, in the chaos. Okay? And leadership is about minimizing the upheaval or the chaos, bringing clarity to the situation and seeking to conquer the chaos to become the leader or the hero of that nation or that company. So the chaos is the default. The chaos is default. You know, I spoke about the second law of the thermodynamics. If you leave the tomato, it will disintegrate and reduce to its irreducible core, atomic structure. So chaos is always the default. The suffering is always the default. Leadership is about going from chaos to conquest. And you change the wheels of the tire even as the car or the vehicle is moving. You do not stand and say, I will change the tires before I move. So it is real. The desired outcomes must be clearly articulated. The greatest good for the greatest number for the longest time, and then we proceed for our desired outcomes. Amma, I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much.
Hello? Hello, Mr. Moderator?
Hello? Okay, so I believe we cannot take any more questions. We should be drawing the curtains.
Hello, Mr. Moderator.
Ray, can you mute your phone, please?
I wanted to say something, actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So, I just want to add something to Theodore, what Theodore mentioned about the group thing. I read a book last year. I suspect it should be Drive by Daniel Pink. And he discussed various features of this phenomenon of groupthink. and he gave some examples by way of advice. And so I think in addition to what Theodore you've shared about how to counter groupthink with diversity and the other stuff.
Lawyer Ray, you seem to have a lot of background noise.
Please, those unmuted, we are getting feed. Vicenderi and co, please, if you can kindly mute. We are getting feed from you. Please go ahead with your submission, please.
Hey, Lawyer Ray. I think Lawyer Ray is gone. All right. So, guys, I'm in your hands now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Albright. And so on that note, I believe we should be bringing this session to a close. We've eaten into the 8 o'clock deadline that we set ourselves. So on that note, I would want to invite Mr. Kofi Fume, CEO, CIMG Consult, to give us the closing remarks. We'll take a closing prayer, and then we can all go back to our homes. So, Mr. Fume, please take it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Prosper. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's been a wonderful presentation. We have been bombarded with loads of information, data. Theodore touched on a lot of concepts about leadership, about emotional intelligence, about group dynamics. And some of these concepts are in themselves very loaded. I would encourage participants to seek further information and understand some of these concepts very well. We are ready to provide a platform for training together with Theodore to go into more detail with some of these things. You talk to your HR managers, or indeed you can come in yourself and opt to have a training on some of these things, and we would oblige you with a well-designed and practical training session. So I encourage everybody to, as it were, take advantage of this and gain the knowledge and skills that will improve our performance. Excellence in our professional lives is key to our progress. So that's all I would say for now. Thank you very much for being part of the session. Prosper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fume. And so at this juncture, I would say the closing prayer. It will be adios from the presenter and from the CIMG. We are praying, please. Father, Lord, we started with you and we are still closing with you. What we are asking from you, Father, at this juncture is to say, dismiss us with your blessings. Amen.